I'm going to show you what I would choose as a spot for a shelter, where I would camp out here on the trail for Anasazi. So coming over here, this is a spot I kind of actually scouted earlier, and I would choose this spot right here. So this is an alligator bark juniper that we're kind of camping under. And the reason I would choose this is, see all the duff that's all the leaf litter and like the little tiny juniper needles and stuff like that. Those are great. They tell me a couple things. They tell me, A, this probably isn't going to flood. So if it's a heavy downpour, some kind of a rain, like a monsoon storm or winter storm we get here, if it were to flood, you would see this duff, you would see it like pushed over and kind of like bare dirt with kind of these like natural little dams of this pine needle leaf litter kind of pushed over to one side. Because that's not here, that tells me that this spot's actually probably going to be okay in a storm. I like that it's a little bit more sheltered. We've got some other trees a little bit around, which will give a little bit more wind protection. And it's fairly flat. I mean, it's got a few lumps and bumps, and I could come in here if I was really particular. I'd probably come in here and maybe smooth it out a little bit, kind of flatten things down, or take a bunch more of this leaf litter and pile it up into kind of like a leaf bed, give me more insulation from the ground, a little bit more cushion. But all in all, this is a pretty good spot. Another reason I like this spot is, as you can see up here, there's this branch that's going along, and that branch is what we're going to tie up. So I'm going to show you guys how to build a diamond shelter, diamond style shelter. And this branch, because it's so long, you'll see my preference in how I like to tie out for shelters to get it really good and taut, where there's no little droopy sections where water could potentially pool. So what I do, I have my poncho here, and I've got 3 bandanas and some paracord, which is what we use at Anasazi for our packs. And I'm just going to drop those right there for the moment, because I'm going to unwrap this shelter, this poncho. So this is just one of those waterproof military style ponchos. Something you want to consider when putting up your shelter is you want to consider, which way am I getting out? Usually it's easier to get out on the side that's the long side of the tarp versus the short side of the tarp. So I like to figure out, okay, I'm probably most likely going to be getting out going this direction, so I am going to make my long side on this side. So I'm going to tie this corner up to the tree. So I'm going to lay this out here as best I can in kind of the position. So when you sleep in a diamond shelter, you sleep across the diagonal of the tarp. It's where you get the most length. And then you can use the 2 corners to stash your gear in to keep it dry from the rain as well. So so I would lay it out the way I would lay down on the ground. So if I had a leaf bed, I would just lay it over the top of the leaf bed. Then I'm going to come in here, untie my pack string, or the paracord. I'll run up here a little bit closer so you can see this. I have just a simple, essentially it's an overhand knot with a bight in it, which is what creates this loop. So a bight is anytime the rope goes back on itself. So I just tied this, I folded it over, and then I just tied a quick overhand knot. And then I always just leave this permanently in the end of my paracord. For when I'm tying up my Anasazi pack, it just makes it a whole heck of a lot easier. So this just is permanently in the rope. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the paracord, or actually this knot's small enough I can just fit it through. I'm just going to put it through the eyelet that's at the corner, the corner grommet of this tarp. And I'm just going to pull the paracord all the way through that loop, that permanent loop that's on the tarp. So it's hooked now to the corner of the poncho. And then I'm just going to come in here, and now the thing is, the higher up I tie this, the higher up the head of my tarp's going to be, which means more likely wind can blow in. So like with monsoons, a lot of times we'll get a wind that comes in as well. And so that wind, it blows the rain in under your shelter. So what I like to do is, it's not the most comfortable for sitting under, but usually I'm just sleeping under it anyway. So I like to make it low to the ground. That way there's less chance that wind will blow the rain in. So I kind of tie it in here. I'm going to tie it up kind of close to the tree also to get some weather protection from it. And I'm just going to pull the rope kind of around the tree. And then I'm just going to do, you can look this up if you want later, I just do a hitch knot. Just kind of your simple half hitch, I think is the one. You can do a clove hitch if you want to. There's all different kinds of hitch knots. But just essentially anything that will work to tie the rope and keep it tied up kind of around the tree. That's all you're going for. So I'm just going to very quickly come in here and tie that up. Alright? Now what I'm going to do is with my bandanas, I'm going to tie them to each of the remaining 3 corners of the tarp. Coming in here. I like bandanas because you can spread them out wide and really put the rocks, like have a lot of area that the rock can weight down to hold it in place. So, coming in here, tying around the corner. And I'm just using one corner of the bandana and going through, and then I'm just doing a simple overhand knot to tie the bandana to the corner. Be careful you don't pull too hard on the bandana, because if they're old bandanas, they'll rip. So you just want to be careful where it's snug, but you're not like wrenching on it to rip the bandana. And then this one already had one tied on. Makes it easy. If you ever do that, you can. You could just leave 3 bandanas tied permanently onto the poncho or the tarp. Just one less step to do. And then what I want to do is I want to find big rocks, big heavy rocks, almost to the, if I can, like the limit of what I can carry. Because this is what's going to hold down, and the heavier it is, the more likely it'll hold your shelter down in the wind. So I got this one right here, and I'm just going to, I always like to do the one that's right directly in line with the tree. So essentially where your feet would be in the shelter. And I like to come here, and I stretch it out from that tree as far as I can, and then I put my knee down kind of on the bandana to hold it in place. Take your rock and lay it down on your nice and spread out bandana. Then come in, find another big rock. Something to be aware of in Arizona. We have scorpions. We also have black widows and brown recluses, but so do a lot of other places have those last 2. And so when you're pulling up rocks for shelters, it's always a good idea to maybe like kick them over first, or just kind of lightly get your fingers on the edge and pull them back. Don't take your fingers and dig them underneath, because then you're more likely to get bit or stung by something that's living under the rock. So I always like kind of pry it up first, flip it over, make sure there's nothing on there that could potentially do me harm, and then I pick it up and carry it where I need to go. So, come in here. At this point, it doesn't matter which corner you pick, it's no big deal. But you want to, again, stretch out the poncho as far as you possibly can. So that it's kind of, you can already see the tautness of the tarp without even having to pull up the hood. It's already pretty tight. Come in here, again, and then lay your rock down on the bandana. So, I need to find one more rock. Here, I think there's one over here. And I'm gonna, once again, kind of stretch out the tarp. You can see it's nice and tight. And then lay that rock down. Now, if need be, I could just sleep in it like this. But I want to do one last step, which is I want to tie up the hood, because that will help the water to kind of drain off the tarp a little bit faster. And so that pack string, because we still have a lot left of our pack string, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to tie Ideally what I like to do is I like to throw it over the branch first, and if I have enough, and then tie back down to the hood. So I'm going to go around. I think this branch will hold. We'll find out in a second. As I put tension on it, it might break. We'll see. So you want to cinch up your hood as tight as you can. Just make sure that no rain's going to get in that way. So I just like to pull it really, really, really tight. And then I just do some kind of a simple knot, overhand knot usually. If I think I'm going to actually ever use this poncho to wear, not just for a shelter, I might pick a knot that's easier to untie, like a bowline or a square knot or something, so that as the ropes kind of tighten and swell, I can still untie it later. But for right now, we will just we'll just go with this. So I want to make sure that the hole, because there's still a tiny bit of a hole, you can't fully cinch it shut, is pretty much closed and protected from the weather. So I'm just kind of pulling the hood through to kind of cover up that hole. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down. So I'm going to create a loop in the end of this for something to tie the pack string onto. Because what I want to do ideally is I want to come in here, hook it through the loop on the poncho, and then I want to pull it back. So I'm pulling the paracord back on itself, back up towards the branch, and creating some nice, even tension all around the tarp. So you can see here's it fully kind of slack, and here's with it kind of pulled up there. And then what I'm going to do is a taut line hitch, which is essentially you start it just like hitch. You can look this one up as well. It's a little hard to see from this distance, but I'm wrapping it around. So I created a loop, wrapped it around. You can do this, do it at least 3 times, but you can do it more if you need more of a bite, like more grip on the rope. You can do it as many times as you have rope. But what's nice about this knot is it tightens back on itself, so it doesn't slip. But if, say, like the rope starts stretching because of rain and moisture, I can come in and I can adjust it. I can slide it up, or if need be, I can slide it down. The reason, so something that I've learned in my time at Anasazi and building a lot of these shelters is a lot of times people, when they're tying up the hood, they want to go straight up above from the hood. But what happens is then it creates this kind of weird, funky dip. So like say you're tying it straight up like this. These 3 sides will be tight, but down here you create this like dip in the tarp where water can collect, and usually that's right above your head. So then you might start having water dripping on your head during the night. Somebody years ago taught me that if you look for a branch that's kind of angled back outward, like away behind the tarp, then when you go to tighten it up and to tie it, it pulls kind of all the sides evenly, and then it creates that nice, really good kind of sheeting effect on the tarp. So just kind of something to be aware of. So when I'm looking for a shelter spot, I'll actually look for a branch that goes kind of further back behind my shelter, or sometimes I'll even use another tree that's like behind my shelter, something that I can tie the pack string to create that like nice, even tension all around. But as you can see here, so I'm trying to, it's holding on itself really good. Get this a little tighter. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So as you can see here, from the height, like me standing at the head, this is maybe like mid-thigh height. And so it's not super high. I can't really sit underneath this thing. But I can, sleep really comfortably. I can't tell you how many nights I've actually slept in something like this through rain and hail and monsoon storms and snow even, and stayed perfectly dry. And so when you're getting in, you can just kind of, you just kind of wriggle down underneath. You lay your ground tarp down, lay out your sleeping bag, kind of the diagonal length, and then you can just tuck in. Something else to be aware of in a downpour that's really helpful is you take like your digging stick or a rock or another kind of stick, and you dig trenches, because what's going to happen is as the water's pouring off, it's going to pool along the bottom of the tarp. And if you're on a really flat surface, or say it's dripping off kind of, you're on a slight slope and it's dripping off on the one end, it might start running underneath you. What you do is you come in with your digging stick and you dig trenches right underneath the edge of your tarp. And it's almost like you're creating a little canal system to kind of carry the water away. You're directing the water away from underneath your shelter so that you stay sleeping dry. So that's just something else to be aware of, kind of a pro tip that makes it a lot more comfy under one of these shelters. But I hope that kind of helps you to know, give you an idea of how to set up one of these diamond point shelters. Yeah, so there you have it.